Yes, yes. How's it going, live stream crew? Hope you guys are good. It is Offbeat live streaming live from Peterborough from my Airbnb where I'm staying. This week I'm doing a podcasting course. I did a little live stream on Monday. Told you guys that I was here in Peterborough doing a podcasting course, 3-day course, and it is day 2. I'm going to move this chat window so you can see my hand. Day 2 of 3. So I've still got one more day to go tomorrow. But I'm trying to do live streams Monday, Wednesday, Friday. So I wanted to do one tonight. And I just thought I'd share with you guys what I've learned so far. It's been wicked so far. I'm actually not even sure what they're going to include tomorrow on the 3rd day because it kind of feels like we've covered everything already. We've covered a lot. So yeah, I'm looking forward to tomorrow, but I genuinely don't know what else there is to cover. But I thought I would share my top 5 takeaways with you, things that I've learned so far from doing this course. I don't know if you guys are interested in doing your own podcast, or whether you are into other people's podcasts and you maybe want to learn a little bit about like behind the scenes, or maybe you don't care at all. But I thought I would share it with you anyway, because I think it's interesting. So I'm sure someone else out there will agree with me. So the first thing, before coming here, I wasn't even sure if I was going to do one. Like, basically, I'm doing a year-long program, and it gets by doing this program, I get a bunch of courses thrown in for free, and this is one of them. So I did a podcast a few years ago. It was called Talking Shop, and basically the idea was that I talked to other creative people and found out how they managed to turn their passion into a living. And it was good for what it was. Like, I only did about 6 or 7 episodes, but it was good fun. I met some great people, and I got some got lots of value out of it. Like, I learned a lot from them, and also built some good relationships. Like, I've made some really solid friendships just from doing those few podcasts. So it definitely served its purpose, but I didn't keep it up. And with anything like that, with podcasting, music, anything kind of creative, if you want it to be successful, I think you need to be consistent. Anything, not even anything necessarily creative, just any sort of content creation, whatever it is you're doing, you need to be consistent. And I wasn't. So yeah, I wasn't sure if I was going to do one again this time round because didn't know if I had the time, didn't know if the benefits would be worthwhile enough to dedicate the time to it. So that's kind of the first thing that I wanted to learn from this course, and basically the answer is yes, I'm going to do one. Basically, having learned all of the benefits from doing it, I pretty much can't afford not to. Now I see it as a really, really essential part of my overall strategy. So I'm definitely going to be doing it again. And the main reasons for doing it are I want to find new fans. I want to find new people to listen to my music and discover my music. And I just think podcasting is yet another platform where people can discover me. So Facebook, there's lots of people on there who don't follow me on YouTube. Vice versa, on YouTube, I've got plenty of people on there who never use Facebook because it's just not what they do online. And similarly, there are lots of people who listen to podcasts who wouldn't necessarily discover me on either of those platforms. So I feel like, number one, it's a great place to be discovered and to find new people to listen to me and my music. I feel like the relationships that you build over podcasts are stronger, or certainly it's easier to build a strong relationship via podcasts with your listeners, because for 2 reasons. One, it's longer, so they can actually sort of sit and listen to you talk for longer. And 2, the way it's consumed is just more conducive to building that relationship. So with Facebook, for example, I might do a live stream, but the idea of Facebook is that you're constantly scrolling. It's the infinite scroll. So even if you see me do a live stream, you might watch it for a little bit and go, nah, next, carry on going. Whereas podcasts, if you're listening to a podcast, chances are you're going to listen to the whole thing. So I think the intent is different, and therefore it's a great way to build a relationship with your listeners that is stronger than just sort of regular social media. There's less competition as well. This was a staggering stat that they shared with us on the course, that basically social media sites, I think they said that YouTube's got something like 500 million channels, which is nuts. 500 million. Just let that sink in. 500 million. And they asked us how many podcasts we thought were around. Everyone was making wild guesses, and it turns out there's less than a million podcasts. And I didn't really believe that, but then I started searching for podcasts about things that you just expect would exist. Like, because my perception was that podcasts were already saturated. I was like, oh, if I do start one, is there even any point? Because that land has already had all the flags put in it, sort of thing. But I was searching for podcasts that just don't exist. So that was crazy. So there's way less competition, and also from a like marketing point of view, again on Facebook and YouTube, like the reach is terrible. The Facebook particularly, like if I post something on Facebook, it might show it to like 5% of the people that actually like my page, which is crazy, but it's just the way it is. And YouTube similar. Like I've got something like 5,000 subscribers on YouTube, and all the time I get messages from people saying like, "Stupid YouTube didn't show me your thing, didn't send me a notification." So the reach, which is what that's called, like the amount of your followers that a platform shows your stuff to, is very small on social media. But on podcasts, it's like 100%. If you subscribe to a podcast, it will download it for you. Like that's no guarantee that the person will listen to it, but like they will be sent it automatically and told about it. So that's pretty awesome as well from a marketing point of view. And then also, and this was what I kind of got out of doing it last time, was I'm going to move the comments over to this side. And hi guys, thank you for coming along, by the way. Random Shit and Caleb Ray, sup, cheers for coming. And I can see there's another person watching but not commenting, so hello to you too. Yeah, the other thing that I really got out of doing one last time was the like networking with the guests. So the first one I did was with a guy called Mike from Dutty Moonshine, who I was friendly with before, but we weren't like close mates. And then after doing that podcast, we basically hung out for the evening and got really drunk, and I stayed at his house, and we've been good mates ever since. So, and that's been similar for a lot of the people I interviewed last time. Like it really strengthened our relationship. So I'm hoping that any guests that I get on in future, it'll be a similar thing. Like it's a good opportunity to get in front of people, to have a good conversation with them, to build a good like rapport, and yeah, like it's a great networking tool as well. So that is the first takeaway. That was like 5 little mini takeaways, but then one overall takeaway, which was, should I do a podcast? And the answer is yes. Hi, Simon Britcher. Thank you for coming. Number 2 was, what should the podcast be called and what should it be about? Other way around. What should it be about and what should it be called? So I was thinking, well, I'll just start up the old one again. I'll just relaunch it. And the old one was called Talking Shop. And as I say, it was about me talking to creative people and finding out how they've turned their passion into a living. And I'm still really interested in that. But I'm also interested in lots of other things. So I want it to be about music. I'm going to move the chat again. I want it to be about music. I want it to be about comedy as well, because as you guys know, I'm going to be starting stand-up soon, so I want there to be that kind of element to it as well, and like me discovering all of that. I do want there to be like a business aspect to it and a marketing aspect to it, which was the sort of Talking Shop, finding out how people have turned their passion into a profession. That's that sort of element covered. And also, I want to talk about kind of like personal development and mental health as well, because I've sort of touched very lightly on that with these live streams recently. But I haven't really gone in deep on it yet, and that's kind of on purpose because like I'm not ready to start covering that stuff yet, but it is in my mind for the future. So I've got these sort of 3 areas that I want to cover, like music and comedy, business and marketing, and personal development, mental health. And it's sort of like, if you know what a Venn diagram is, it's where you got the different circles that overlap, and then the thing in the middle is basically me. Like I'm the thing that that all of those things have in common. Certainly with regards to this podcast, I will be. So basically, yeah, it doesn't make sense to call it Talking Shop. Didn't make sense to call it to call it like passion to profession or something like that, because again, that's not necessarily what I'm going to be talking about all the time. So I was kind of brainstorming it, and with the people on the course as well. And basically, they were like, just call it the Offbeat Show. Like that's what it's going to be, right? It's about you. It's about your kind of personal brand. And you're like the thing in the middle that all these other things relate to in your podcast. Just call it the Offbeat Show. I was like, And it didn't quite, to be honest, it didn't sit with me perfectly straight away. It wasn't like a light bulb moment for me, but it's kind of grown on me. And also, it does what it says on the tin. Like anyone who comes across that, it's going to be like, well, it must be. It's either like offbeat topics, which they kind of are, or it's about someone called Offbeat, which it also is. So I think that's a good name. And it also gives me the freedom then to do whatever I want with it. I can talk about music and comedy, I can talk about business and marketing, I can talk about personal development and mental health, talk about whatever I want, do whatever I want, because it's my show. So there you go. So what do you think? Is that a good name? And are those interesting topics? Or should I think about maybe calling it something else? Interested to hear your thoughts. I'm going to take a quick moment just to holler at the people in the chat. Who have we got? Annabelle Ellis. Hey, how you doing? What kind of people would you talk to? Other musicians, sound guys, festival people? I'll come on to that in a little bit. In fact, that is one of my points. Caleb is bigging up the other two. Simon. Where's Simon? Oh, yeah, Simon came earlier. Cool. And Robbie says, sorry, I'm late. I was in the shower. No worries. All good, man. Good to see you. Thank you for coming along. Simon says, good topics. Deaf. Nice one. Okay. What? Whoa. Ooh. Where's the chat gone? That's weird. There we go. Right. So that's 2 of 5. Number 3 is what sort of guests should I have and where should I find them? So this does cover Annabelle's question about what kind of people will I talk to. So initially I was thinking musicians, obviously, because like I know quite a few, and that would be interesting. But then also there are other people I want to talk to, sort of more businessy people. I know a few like interesting business people and kind of influencers and stuff, but certainly not as many as I know musicians. And I'm not too sure where I'd go to find those people to chat to who'd be like interesting for listeners. There's plenty I could talk to that would be very specifically interesting to me, but not necessarily to overall listeners. But the comedy stuff, I had a brainwave, which is like, I live in Bristol. We get comedians coming to visit Bristol all the time to do shows, and I'm just going to approach them and see if they want to be on the podcast. Like, no guarantee that they're going to say yes, but like constantly have like a, same with music, to be fair, like we get a lot of musicians coming through as well, but like I already know quite a few of them. But comedians, I reckon there's people who are like reasonably decent sized names as well, like people have heard of, who'd be up for it. And I won't know till I find out, but I'm going to give it a go and just try and get some people on it. But yeah, there's constantly people coming to Bristol, constantly like a wave of talent coming through. So sure, like if I ask enough of them, then some of them are going to say, yeah, right, we'll see. So that's number 3, like what kind of guests I'm going to get on and where I can find them. But again, open to suggestions. Annabelle said, other musicians, sound guys, festival people. Not so sure, when you say sound guys, do you mean like technicians and stuff like that? And festival people, maybe not so much. But certainly other musicians. I've got lots of like musical friends, but there's also lots of musicians that I do want to meet and network with that I haven't yet. So that again, that's another awesome opportunity. Say like a musician that I really like someone like Brother Ali, amazing American rapper. Say he came to Bristol, which he did do last year. I don't think it's out of the realms of possibility that I could probably maybe get him to be on a podcast. Like he's not so massive that that he'd have like an agent that would be like, no. I mean, he might do, or he might be like, no, don't know. But like again, I just think it's like a podcast is like an accessible platform, like, and people are more likely to be up for being on that. Like, obviously, if I phoned him up and was like, "Hey, I see you coming into Bristol. Fancy just meeting up for a chat for an hour and a coffee?" He'd be like, "Nah, mate, I don't know you." But if like there was a podcast and it had, this is the next thing as well. If it had like a decent kind of ranking and like decent following, then why not? We'll see. Not kind of certainly not assuming anything, but like could work. So number 4. I'm gonna rearrange these slightly. I've got these in a different order, but this relates to what I just said. So how to rank and how important ranking is. So I've often seen like podcasts by relatively new people shoot to number 1 in the charts, and like people posting it on social media saying like, "Hey, my new podcast just launched. I just got to number 1 in my category of like business or music or whatever it is," and they get to the number 1 spot straight away, and they're beating people like Tim Ferriss and Joe Rogan and stuff like that. And I'm like, what? How is that even possible? That I don't understand it. And I found out today the way the algorithm works. It's nothing to do with the number of like subscribers you've got overall. It's to do with the quantity that subscribe in one go. So what people are doing is like, before they launch, they're prepping their audience and saying, guys, I need you to all download my podcast on the same day. and even like running little competitions and stuff like that to try and get people to do it, and then just getting like a few thousand people to download it all at once. And then the algorithm is like, wow, this must be a hot podcast. So loads of people are downloading it at once, and it shoots it up. And that's how they can actually compete with those massive, massive names who do have like hundreds of thousands of listeners. But percentage-wise, they might not get a 2,000% uplift on one day when a brand new one does if they prep it properly. So that's awesome. But also, like, I mean, it's cool. Obviously, it'd be really cool to have like a #1 podcast, right? But also, like, is that just a vanity thing? Like, is there any value to that? And the answer is yeah, because it's easier to get guests if you can say that. If you take a screenshot and you go, look, #1 podcast, when you're approaching guests, you can use that as a sort of sweetener for them to come on your podcast. You can say, I've got a #1 podcast, would love to have you on it. That's going to act as like a bit of an incentive for them. So that's why, and also how. So that's really exciting too. So with that in mind, when I do launch it, don't worry, I'll definitely let you guys know well in advance, but I hope that you will all help me out by going to subscribe on the day. So I'm just seeding that there for you now. And then number 5 is it's not so much, well, it is a takeaway, but it's an idea that I had. Actually, I didn't even have it. The person taking the course just said it, and I was like, oh my God, that's genius. They were like, oh, you could combine your podcast with like live events, and you could do like live podcasts and gigs. And I was just like, oh my God. Like, first of all, actually, I didn't even get it first of all. I was just like, yeah, obviously, cool. And then it sunk in, and I was like, oh my God, that would be wicked. Imagine that. So imagine I got like one guest. Let's take Professor Elemental, for example, because I've worked with him before. Me and him are very friendly, and he's the sort of guy I could totally imagine doing this with. Say I travel to Brighton, and we hire a little venue, capacity of like 150, 200 people, and I interview him for an hour and record it on the podcast. But people can come and they can watch it live and they can ask questions. Then there's like a half an hour or an hour Q&A where they can actually ask the questions direct, and like me and him can answer them all on the podcast. Then after that, I can do like a 1 hour live set, and then he can do a 1 hour live set. And then that's like a whole event. That's like 4 hours if the Q&A is an hour. And like, not only do I get a podcast out of it, and so does he if he wants to use that for his podcast or his content, but like, we also get a gig out of it, and we get to bring people to come and see it, and they get to interact with us, and they get to be part of something in a way they wouldn't normally. Because if you go to a gig normally, you don't get to talk to the artist, or if you do, it's like for 5 seconds, we're like, oh, that was wicked, man, thanks. And they're like, thanks, and that's it. This is like a proper, like, intensive sit-down conversation where you can ask questions and stuff like that. And then afterwards, you get to see the gig as well. I think that'd be awesome, and I'm interested to see what you think. And I can see that Violet Vivid thinks that's a great idea. Thank you. I hope to see you there. And Robbie says, I'm seeing Professor Elemental in Swansea on Saturday. Awesome. Hopefully he's not doing a live podcast with someone and stealing my idea. But that'll be a wicked gig, man. And say hello to him for me, and to yourself as well from me. So yeah, that was it. That's my 5 key takeaways so far. And as I say, it's only day 2 of 3. So who knows what else I'll pick up tomorrow. But I'm just going to recap on those. Why I should do one. Actually, no, I won't go through all of that again. But the first thing is I should do one. That was my first big takeaway. I can't afford not to. Now I understand the benefits. I'm going to do one. Number 2, it's going to be called The Offbeat Show. And it's going to cover music and comedy, business and marketing, and personal development and mental health. And then basically I'm just going to be in the middle, and I'm going to interview people and talk about stuff directly. And that's going to be all the sort of various topics that I cover. And it's going to be The Offbeat Show. Number 3, what kind of guests am I going to have? Obviously musicians. I know lots of musicians. Hopefully some business people. And actually, even as I've been doing this, I can think of more that I could get on, like music marketing people who are quite interesting. But also comedians. And there's so many that come to Bristol to perform that I'm just going to try and get them on there. So that's the sort of guests that I'm going to be getting, hopefully. Number 4 is how you actually end up ranking highly in the podcast charts, and it's not to do with the number of subscribers, it's to do with the quantity of people who subscribe at once. So please, when I do launch it, subscribe, but don't worry, I'll be giving you plenty of notice when I do that. Also, it's probably going to be in about 3 months' time, I would say. I've got something else big that I want to launch first, which I'm going to be explaining to you guys very soon. So I reckon this is going to be in about 3 months' time. But I will give you more information. But do please subscribe when I do it. And then last but not least was the idea that I could combine like a live podcast with gigs as well, and kind of tour it basically. So go to, in fact I didn't even say that before, but that's what I do is I tour it. So I'd go to each artist's city, find an artist in that city, do a podcast with them live, do a Q&A with them live, and then they can do an hour's set, I can do an hour's set, and then that's basically like a whole event in one, and probably, I don't know, have like 100 to 200 people come, and I think that'd be a really fun thing. So that is it. That is my 5 key takeaways of my podcasting course that I've done so far. The course is with a company called Progressive Success. They're an offshoot of a company called Progressive Property, who you may have heard of, if like only because they're bigger, but I don't know how many of you guys are into property. And it's all headed up by a guy called Rob Moore, who his like personal brand is the Disruptive Entrepreneur, which you're more likely to have heard of because he does stuff on TV and he's just more well known as a sort of figure on social media because of that. So quick shout out to them. And then yeah, one other thing I wanted to include before I go, and then I've got to shoot off, is I can confirm that I've got a tune coming out very shortly with Wolfgang Law. So a lot of you guys would have heard the track that me and the Swing Hoppers did with him, Party Like It's 1920. I wanted to do, now that the Swing Hoppers are sadly no more, I wanted to do a track with him, just me and him. So we've created one called Swing in Spring, and it's an absolute banger. It's kind of similar to Party Like It's 1920, like it's electro swing. It's like a really like upbeat, catchy, like floor filler. It's called Swing in Spring, and it is basically about the fact that it's nearly spring again. So saying goodbye to the winter, goodbye to the cold, goodbye to the dark, and hello to the sun and the light and the warmth and just the good vibes. And we've got a singer on it as well. It sounds wicked. I'll be sharing some previews of it with you guys very soon. But if you want to go and do like a pre-save now for when it gets released, there's a link in the, actually it's not in the description, it'll be in the comments. I'll leave a comment to it. I'm not going to put it in the description because again, that kills your reach, even though it's not dead enough on social media. So check the comments in a minute, and I'll make sure I put a link to it. But yeah, that's coming out on the 20th of March, which is the first day of spring. Very appropriate. So keep an eye out for that. It's going to be awesome. It sounds amazing. We're both really excited. We've been like messaging each other back and forth. Like, I can't stop listening to it, which is always a good sign. Because normally I'm sick of my own songs by the time they actually get out. This one, I've been pumping in the gym. So yeah, that's it. I'm going to very quickly just respond to some messages that you guys have sent. Thank you very much. Caleb lives in Brighton, but it's in Colorado in the US. Yeah, that's probably a little bit far for me to come for a podcast, unfortunately. Denise Fitzsimmons says, I totally misread this title and thought it was about actual food takeaways. I was really excited, but this is interesting and useful. Yeah, sadly not. I haven't had 5 takeaways since I've been in Peterborough. I would feel like a bit of a fatty if I had, especially because I've only been here for 2 days. But glad you found it useful, and good to see you, Denise. Robbie says will do, so that's saying sup to the prof on Saturday. Violet says awesome. Not quite sure what that's awesome in response to, but great. Hopefully it's the song with me and Wolfgang. Caleb says winter can suck it. I'm so ready for spring. Absolutely, me too, mate. I don't tell winter to suck it in the song, but I do have various choice words to say to it. Random shit says in here is summer. All right, don't rub it in. If it is, then probably it's like coming to an end soon, right? So maybe too smug, mate. And Violet says, I do confess I misheard you saying ranking. Excellent. Well, hopefully that's not what you were saying. Awesome too. Cool. So it's to the new song and not me ranking with an R in the iTunes charts. Right, cool. Guys, that's it. I'm going to shoot off now. Thank you very much for tuning in. Good to see you all, as always. And I'll be back on Friday with another live stream. Don't know what about yet, but I will see you guys then. Take it easy. Peace.